Hey everybody, it's Amber with OMe, and today I'm going to teach you how to do a layered drawing in ProCreate and move it into Glowforge so that you can both cut as well as engrave your item. Today we're going to do earrings, but you can do all sorts of things with this little guy. And I'm going to do a gnome. He's got kind of a Louisiana theme. We like fleur-de-lis down here. We're going to be having a Mardi Gras hat on this guy since we're getting close to Mardi Gras season here. And actually we're in Mardi Gras season as of yesterday. So we're very excited here in Louisiana. King's Day was yesterday. We're all starting to eat king cake and celebrate because Mardi Gras is going to happen, please, in New Orleans this year. We're very excited. So today I'm going to take you through this little gnome, and what we're going to do is start with ProCreate. We're going to move into Adobe Illustrator, and then we're going to move on to our Glowforge. So if you have those three things, we can go ahead and get started today. I am going to go ahead and make myself a little bit smaller here and bring you into the ProCreate area. So I've already copy and pasted my little gnome. I did him as a drawing in Notes. You can also take pictures of things. You can draw on a sheet of paper, take a picture of that sheet of paper and bring it in. All you have to do is go up here to the little settings area. You hit add, and I did it through pasting this drawing that I had done through in Notes. You can also draw right here using the bottom layer and then add your layers on top of it. I just like Notes and drawing in Notes for some reason, and it's probably easier to draw in ProCreate, to be honest with you, but I haven't broken my habit of using Notes before I had ProCreate, so I like drawing in that area. Now, if you go in here, though, you can insert a photo, as you can see. You can also insert a file. You can take a picture if you'd like, and you can add text right here as well. So just remember those things for later if you want to do something else. Now, my little gnome is the only layer that I have here right now besides the background layer, and we're going to try to take that out later before we send it over to Adobe Illustrator. But if you get up here to this top area, you'll see that there's this two little sheets of paper is what I like to call it. It's right next to your eraser, which you can use if you have boo-boos today. And then we're going to add a layer for cutting as well as a layer for engraving. So let's go ahead and do that. Hit your layer button or hit your little plus button up here to add that second layer. We're going to rename that Cut. And then we're going to add another layer that we're going to call Engrave. Now you can also score this if you like. I may score it if it looks good on the other side, but I'm going to call it Engrave for now. And then I'll make that decision when we get over to the Glowforge. And I may do both and see what the difference is. So go ahead and return to this area, and what we want to do first is touch on cut so you can see that the next thing you'll be doing is the cut file. And what you're going to do is just trace around the outside of your edge. I chose red to do it just because red is kind of the chosen color for a lot of things on the Glowforge, and I'm kind of trained that way now. So my cut files tend to be in red. And remember from our last video that when you're going around things and you'd like more perfect edges, if you hold your pencil down, it will make it more perfect for you, right? So you can do that. You can do straight lines, all sorts of other things. I'm going to go ahead and undo those because I don't need those in this. And I am going to draw all the way around the side of my little gnome here. You don't want to go into the areas of the gnome because you remember this is all going to be cut out. Whoops. There we go. Look at that. How nice was that? That it kind of straightened up all of the cut lines. And this last one, I don't really want a pointy hat on top of my little gnome, so I'm just going to take my eraser, go up to the top of this guy, and give it a little curve at the top. Okay, and then get your eraser and get rid of some of those lines around it and give it a good cleanup after you're done. So now we're going to move into our second layer, that engrave layer. So what we're going to do is go up here to our little 2 sheets area, click on engrave. We're going to change colors because remember that the Glowforge notices the different layers when they see when it sees different colors. So we're going to choose green just because we're still close to Christmas. And what we're going to do is go over here and we're going to go all the way through the side lines of our drawing with our engraving. And the reason that we're going to do this is because when we go over to Adobe Illustrator, it's going to recognize this red line as 2 separate lines. It's going to notice an outside line and it's going to notice an inside line. Let me go ahead and undo that so I don't bring that over accidentally. And the reason that I'm showing you like this is because we're going to keep this outside line and get rid of the inside line, which means we need to go all the way over that area so that we keep all of our engrave lines. Don't worry if you're going over the edges right now, because we can go back and erase those in a few minutes. I didn't like the way that was coming out, so we're just going to go back over the top. Give it a nice little belt here. That's for our fleur-de-lis. This little area down at the bottom, we want to make sure that our beard is outlined here. And you can go up to your eraser. Whoops. You can go up to your eraser. And if you want those lines to be perfect, you can get rid of them. But again, we want to make sure that they go all the way to the edges. If it's slightly over the edge, that's really okay because your cut line is going to cut it out when you get over to the Glowforge. So you could take a look at your cut line and your engrave line separately. All right, looks good to me. Engrave goes in. We have our little beard back. All right, I'm going to go up here. Whoops. And I'm going to grab this and I'm going to clean him up just a little bit. We have a nice little nose there. There you go. So now we want to share this with our computer and we want to share it as 2 separate files. And first thing that we're going to do is go into our little double piece of paper up here and we're going to get rid of the background color. All right, the reason that we want to do that is because we want to deal with as little white when we get over to Adobe Illustrator as possible. And what we're going to do is hide the engrave section and we're only going to have our cut file here. We're going to go up to the wrench, hit share a PNG with the computer so that we get rid of that white background as much as possible. And then we're going to go back to that area and we are going to hit the engrave file and we're going to share that PNG with our computer as well. The only reason I'm not doing it right now is because it'll show my contacts. So when you hit that PNG, you'll be able to go to AirDrop or email or however you want to get it over to your computer and share that file with your computer so you can open it up in Adobe Illustrator. What we're going to do is go down here and drag these 2 files that we shared with our computer into Adobe Illustrator. And we're going to hold down the shift button so that it maintains its proportions and drag it onto the artboard right there. Now what I like to do here is move these 2 separate files off the white area or the artboard so that I can see if there's any white space behind them. And it looks like we did a pretty good job moving these 2 files over to Illustrator from ProCreate and taking out the white background so that it would come over as a as a color object with no background. So good job there. Now we take a look at the first file, which is the Engrave file. And what we want to do, if you don't see the image trace area already on your computer, what you want to do is pop up here to Window and go down to Image Trace and check that area. Mine's already in there. So what we're going to do is click in our object, go up to where it says black and white in the mode area and change it to color. Then we want to go down and choose Ignore White down at the bottom where it has the options. We want to click that Ignore White button. Now I know you can't see it because it's slightly below your screen, but then you go ahead and just hit Trace. The rest of all of the defaults can stay the same. So we only changed the mode to color and we ignored the white space. The reason that we changed the mode to color is because that Glowforge sees color as different layers when you bring it in. So we definitely want to keep that red and green in our objects. Now we're going to go over and do the same thing to our cut file. Window, again, if you can't see the image trace, show that image trace box, go up, change the mode to color, ignore the white space, and again hit Trace. So all we did here, just in case this wasn't in your window at the time, was change the mode to color, again ignored the white space, and hit the Trace button down at the bottom. So now we've got these two little objects in our area here. We're going to bring them in. All right, now we do have one other thing that we have to do real quick. So it looks like our green lines are going all the way to the sides. There's one more problem with this file though. The Glowforge is going to see this as two separate lines right here. Now it doesn't matter for the engrave part of this because it's going to engrave those lines and it's not going to have outer edges. But the cut file needs to have just one line. So what we have to do with this one is go up to Object, go down to Image Trace, which is just below the perspective area. There's a live paint and then Image Trace is right below that. And then you hit Expand. So we do that and it expands this file so that we can see those two separate lines there. And what we do is choose that second arrow up at the top, not the first, the second right here. And then we go into our file and you can see that there's two separate lines here, one on the outside, one on the inside, right? Two separate lines. Now what we want to do is go after that one on the inside and delete it. Now it changes this entire thing to red. That's nice, isn't it? So what we want to do now is click on this top arrow so that we can grab this whole file at the same time, bring it over here, set it on top of our gnome. See how important those lines are going all the way to the edges right here? Because when we cut that, we need those lines going all the way to the sides. So that's why I was so adamant that we get those done. Now I look over here and I see this little white space that's in the green here. And we need to get rid of that white space. So what we're going to do is go up to Object, Image Trace, and expand again. And the reason that we need to get rid of that white space is because we don't want Glowforge to see it as an engrave portion of the document. So click right here on this second arrow, go in real close. You see that little white space? Get rid of it. He's gone now. We don't have to worry about him. Grab your top arrow again, move him onto your file. Let's get close so we can see what we're doing. Move it over. And you see how these green lines are hitting the sides of the gnome? That's perfect because it's going to get cut out on the sides here. And that gnome is going to look really good. So let's save it as an SVG document. Replace my practice one. All right. So the only thing that we really need to do at this point is change this to a cut area down here. The rest of them are already at engraves, and it's okay that they came over as separate files. That's really not a big deal. It's still going to cut just fine. And I want to show you something real quick before I put the material down on it. If you change this into a score file, it ends up with those two lines again, like we had in the Illustrator file. This is why we got rid of that second line that's inside of that red area, because it would have cut twice. It would have cut there, and then it would have cut there, and it would have left us with a little sliver of a gnome on the outside, and there's nothing you can do with that except for chuck it. It's a waste, and it's a pain in the rear end, especially if it's kind of stuck to the side of your gnome. So you want to get rid of that double cut line, and you'll see that this probably isn't a good idea to score this. Now, if you want to, you can, and then you can outline those in black or different colors if you want to. That might be kind of cool, but I think I'm going to stick with the engraving for this. And that way it engraves a nice solid line and makes me some really nice color lines. So let's go ahead and add it to the material. So when you go over here, I really like to get a nice little 1.5 inches or so out of my earrings. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. You can make him a little fatter if you want to, but don't forget that the more wood you use, the heavier this earring gets, and nobody likes to wear heavy earrings. So be careful with that. Now, what we're also going to do is remember that we need a little hole in the top because this is a dangling earring. And the size that you get for this guy needs to be like just barely 1/8 of an inch. Okay, like just tiny. It doesn't even hardly need to fill up one of these little guys that are on the side. It's just a little tiny hole where you can put your jump rings or your earrings, and that even's probably too big. So we're going to make it just a little bit smaller, and that way we can put our jump rings through there. And be careful about getting too close to the sides of it, because you certainly don't want it to be so small. We certainly don't want it to be up against the edges, and then you can't get anything through it anyway. So it just has to be a little smidgen of a hole, and keep it away from the sides so that it doesn't break the wood when you put the jump ring through. So we've got 1.5 inch size earring here, and we're going to do 2 of these guys. And we're going to flip him the other way. Whoops. And that way we have kind of 2 different little earrings here, 2 different little looks. They're looking at each other and kind of hanging out. And again, I always kind of like to flip and make sure that I'm using as little material as possible, just for responsibility reasons, you know. And let's go ahead and move him up a little bit. And we're going to hit print and see what we come out with. So now we have these cute little Mardi Gras gnome earrings. They're adorable. They came out so nice. The only other thing that I will do is paint the backs of them so that when they twist and turn, it just won't be wood on the back of them. So I'll probably just paint them a nice solid color so that that is, you know, complementary to the front, probably just a gold, so that when it twists on the ear, it won't be distracting from these cute little gnomes that came together so nicely. Watch me again next week. We are going to make some cute little Valentine's Day earrings. They're the little candy earrings with the So Sweet and things like that on them. We're going to be doing that in the Glowforge Pro area online, so you won't need Illustrator. You won't need ProCreate for that one. We're just going to be doing it in the software, and these earrings are super cute, so you'll definitely want to see those next week. And until then, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe below, and I'll see you next week.